This is Land of Havilah, 1 Kings 13. Jeroboam is king of the newly formed northern kingdom of Israel. He has abandoned Yahweh and constructed pagan altars and pagan temples across the land. At Bethel, about 10 miles north of Jerusalem, he placed an altar and a golden calf. Bethel means house of God in Hebrew. It got that name from Jacob, Genesis 28:19, because when he stopped there one night, he had the dream of the ladder, and he woke up saying, quote, "How awesome this place is. This is none other than God's house and the gate of heaven." So he called it House of God, or Bethel. But now Jeroboam has desecrated that memory with a golden calf and pagan altar. Now in this chapter, Yahweh is calling a prophet from Judah to Jeroboam's altar at Bethel to deliver a word. Verse 1. Behold, a man of God came out of Judah by Yahweh's word to Bethel, and Jeroboam was standing by the altar to burn incense. He cried against the altar by Yahweh's word and said, "Altar, altar," Yahweh says, "behold, a son will be born to David's house, Josiah by name. On you he will sacrifice the priests of the high places who burn incense on you, and they will burn men's bones on you." He gave a sign that same day, saying, "This is the sign which Yahweh has spoken. Behold, the altar will be split apart, and the ashes that are on it will be poured out." Comment: We don't know the name of the prophet. We do know he's from Judah. He spoke directly to the altar, as if the altar could hear and understand. Jeroboam was standing by the altar, and the prophet was speaking from a distance, as we find out. He says a king will arise in David's house, meaning in Judah, a king descended from Rehoboam, and his name will be Josiah. Josiah will round up the pagan priests in Israel and kill them on the altar, or sacrifice them, as he said. Obviously, it's offensive to Jeroboam to hear that his new religion is going to be shamed by Yahweh, that his priests will be killed and his altar smashed. That's all for the future, but for now, a sign will be given that the prophet knows what he's talking about. The altar will split apart right now, and the ashes will spill out. It's just going to collapse. But obviously it's going to be rebuilt so that the rest of the prophecy can come to pass later on. Verse 4. When the king heard the saying of the man of God, which he cried against the altar in Bethel, Jeroboam put out his hand from the altar, saying, "Seize him." His hand, which he put out against him, dried up, so that he could not draw it back again to himself. Comment: Jeroboam said, "Seize him," so predictably he's not happy to have his altar insulted. But as he pointed, his hand dried up. Dried up could also be translated that his hand stiffened up or withered. This instantaneous drying up is obviously another sign that the prophet knows what he's talking about. Verse 5. The altar was also split apart, and the ashes poured out from the altar, according to the sign which the man of God had given by Yahweh's word. Comment: Now, after the sign of the hand and the sign of the split altar, Jeroboam is temporarily impressed, as we go to verse 6. The king answered the man of God, "Now intercede for the favor of Yahweh your God, and pray for me, that my hand may be restored me again." The man of God interceded with Yahweh, and the king's hand was restored to him again and became as it was before. Comment: Yahweh's mercy and patience is still at work with Jeroboam, but there's no telling how long this window of mercy will last. Verse 7. The king said to the man of God, "Come home with me and refresh yourself, and I will give you a reward." The man of God said to the king, "Even if you gave me half of your house, I would not go in with you, neither would I eat bread nor drink water in this place. For so was it commanded me by Yahweh's word, saying, You shall eat no bread, drink no water, and don't return by the way that you came." Comment: Before the prophet left home, Yahweh told him to deliver the message and come home by another way, and not to eat or drink anything until he gets back. So he will not agree to stick around for Jeroboam's so-called reward. Verse 10. So he went another way and didn't return by the way that he came to Bethel. Comment: Now coming up, another prophet enters the picture, an old one from Bethel. He didn't see what happened at the altar, but his sons were standing there, and they're going to bring their father the report. Verse 11. Now an old prophet lived in Bethel, and one of his sons came and told him all the works that the man of God had done that day in Bethel. They also told their father the words which he had spoken to the king. Their father said to them, "Which way did he go?" Now his sons had seen which way the man of God went, who came from Judah. He said to his sons, "Saddle the donkey for me." So they saddled the donkey for him, and he rode on it. He went after the man of God and found him sitting under an oak. He said to him, "Are you the man of God who came from Judah?" He said, "I am." Comment: the old prophet caught up with the prophet from Judah. Verse 15. Then he said to him, "Come home with me and eat bread." He said, "I may not return with you, nor go in with you. I will not eat bread or drink water with you in this place. For it was said to me by Yahweh's word, You shall eat no bread or drink water there, and don't turn again to go by the way that you came." Comment: now the old prophet will speak. Verse 18. He said to him, "I also am a prophet as you are, and an angel spoke to me by Yahweh's word, saying, Bring him back with you into your house, that he may eat bread and drink water." He lied to him. Comment: why did the old prophet lie to the prophet from Judah, saying that an angel told him that he should stay and eat and drink? Let's keep reading. Verse 19. So he went back with him, ate bread in his house, and drank water. As they sat at the table, Yahweh's word came to the prophet who brought him back. And he cried out to the man of God who came from Judah, saying, Yahweh says, because you have been disobedient to Yahweh's mouth, and have not kept the commandment which Yahweh your God commanded you, but came back, and have eaten bread and drank water in the place of which he said to you, Eat no bread and drink no water, your body will not come to the tomb of your fathers. Comment: here we have a disturbing thing. Why did Yahweh intentionally trap the prophet from Judah? As a result of his disobedience, he won't be buried in his father's tomb. But was it really disobedience? Verse 21 calls it disobedience, quote, because you have been disobedient, end quote. The old prophet lied, saying, quote, an angel spoke to me by Yahweh's word. The prophet from Judah made his mistake by listening to a supposed word from Yahweh when he had his own word that he should go back without eating or drinking. So the moral of the story is that when someone says, Thus saith the Lord, and it doesn't fit with what Yahweh has already said, we must question it. Quote, Beloved, don't believe every spirit, but test the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. 1 John 4:1. The punishment could be worse than not being buried in your father's tomb. Let's keep reading. Verse 23. After he had eaten bread and after he drank, he saddled the donkey for the prophet whom he had brought back. When he had gone, a lion met him by the way and killed him. Comment: the punishment just got worse. It was the punishment for not obeying Yahweh. It was another sign to Jeroboam and to everyone then and now that we should obey, and we shouldn't listen to falsehoods in the name of Yahweh, much less in any other name. So a lion killed the prophet from Judah as he was going home, and still in verse 24, his body was thrown on the path, and the donkey stood by it. The lion also stood by the body. Comment: this is a strange scene with the lion and donkey standing by the body, and the donkey not running, the lion not eating the body or attacking the donkey. This is also a sign that Yahweh is being attentive to this situation, and Yahweh's making some sort of point about this. Verse 25. Behold, men passed by and saw the body thrown on the path, and the lion standing by the body. And they came and told it in the city where the old prophet lived. When the prophet who brought him back from the way heard of it, he said, It is the man of God who was disobedient to Yahweh's mouth. Therefore Yahweh has delivered him to the lion, which has mauled him and slain him according to Yahweh's word, which he spoke to him. Comment: there's the simple message which the prophet from Judah paid so dearly to deliver. He was disobedient, so Yahweh delivered him to the lion. It's a lesson for everyone. Disobedience is a big deal. False religion and false prophecy are a big deal. It's all disobedience, and it'll put you in a terrifying situation. Verse 27. He said to his sons, saying, Saddle the donkey for me, and they saddled it. He went and found his body thrown on the path, and the donkey and the lion standing by the body. The lion had not eaten the body, nor mauled the donkey. The prophet took up the body of the man of God and laid it on the donkey and brought it back. He came to the city of the old prophet to mourn and to bury him. He laid his body in his own grave, and they mourned over him, saying, Alas, my brother. Comment: The old prophet's word came to pass that the prophet from Judah was not laid in his father's tomb. So the old prophet is a true prophet. But why then did the old prophet lie before that, saying, an angel from Yahweh told me to tell you to come home with me and eat and drink? That word was a lie, but it was from the Lord nevertheless, to the end that the prophet from Judah should die to make a point regarding being true to the word. Did the old prophet sin by telling the lie, or was he just being obedient to Yahweh, saying what Yahweh prompted him to say? It's one or the other, which I don't know. Did the prophet from Judah sin by eating and drinking? Yes, but not enough to remove himself from the fellowship of the prophets, and by extension from the fellowship of God. If the old prophet received him into his own grave and mourned over him and called him brother, we can see that his disobedience was fatal in this life, but not eternally fatal. Did Yahweh double-cross the prophet from Judah by entrapping him? Obviously not. Quote, "Let God be found true, but every man a liar," Romans 3:4. And James 1:13-16, quote, "Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted by God. For God can't be tempted by evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own lust and enticed. Then the lust, when it has conceived, bears sin, and the sin, when it is full grown, produces death. Don't be deceived, my beloved brothers." End quote. So that's the lesson. Don't be deceived. Stick with what God has said, or the temptation will produce sin, and the sin, when it is full grown, produces death. Verse 31. After he had buried him, he spoke to his sons, saying, "When I am dead, bury me in the tomb in which the man of God is buried. Lay my bones beside his bones. For the saying which he cried by Yahweh's word against the altar in Bethel and against all the houses of the high places which are in the cities of Samaria will surely happen." Comment: The old prophet says, "Bury me next to the prophet from Judah. He's my kind of guy." So the old prophet's further showing where his heart is. It's in the right place. He realizes the prophet from Judah is a sinner just like he is himself, but he didn't sin to eternal death. As James put it, his sin didn't become, quote, "full grown," end quote. They're both still citizens of the kingdom of God, and the old prophet's heart goes out to the prophet from Judah. In verse 32, we have the first usage of the word Samaria, which refers to the north. In another context, it could also mean the city of Samaria, which had not yet been built. Verse 33, "After this thing, Jeroboam didn't return from his evil way, but again made priests of the high places from among all the people. Whoever wanted to, he consecrated them, that there might be priests of the high places." Comment: in other words, Jeroboam kept manufacturing priests willy-nilly for men who just wanted to be priests, who weren't from the Levites, as Yahweh commanded. Verse 34. "This thing became sin to the house of Jeroboam, even to cut it off and to destroy it from off the surface of the earth." Comment: 2 chapters ago, Yahweh offered Jeroboam, quote, "a sure house as I built for David," 1 Kings 11:38. Now Yahweh says Jeroboam's house will be cut off from the surface of the earth like the prophet from Judah was cut off by the lion. The mauling of a lion isn't pretty, and neither will be the cutting off of Jeroboam's house. So what do we want? Do we want a sure house, or do we want to be cut off as if by a lion? 1 Kings 14 is next. You can find it easily at landofhavilah.net. This is the map of 1 Kings 13. The first prophet was from Judah, which is the southern kingdom. The land of Judah by this time could refer to the land originally assigned to the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. Simeon here, Judah here, and Benjamin here. All of it's now incorporated into the kingdom of Judah. The prophet from Judah traveled to Bethel, about 10 miles north of Jerusalem. He died nearby and was buried in Bethel, the city of the old prophet. 1 Kings 14 is next.